In Unit 1, Lesson Set 4, you're going to learn about cash flow and budgeting. The objectives for this lesson set is to develop and interpret a cash flow chart, develop and interpret a frequency budget plan, and develop and interpret a year-long expense budget plan. So in this first video, we're going to learn about the cash flow chart. When you're looking at a cash flow chart, you want to understand the three major categories on it. The first category is the income category, and this consists of primary and secondary jobs. It can include jobs such as unemployment, Social Security, your normal jobs. All of those are forms of income, money you have coming in. Fixed expenses, and there are actually two types of expenses. They're fixed and variable. And fixed expenses are the same from month to month. They're fixed. They don't change. So these could be items such as mortgage, rent, loan payments. Variable expenses, these expenses change each month, and they consist of items such as food, utilities, gas, savings. And typically a cash flow chart is put in a spreadsheet. So I'm going to pull this out and show you an example. This is Dave and Jane's cash flow chart. So as you can see, the first category, income, contains information for their primary and secondary income. The total income is also included on there, bolded, $6,100. The next, underneath income, they have examples of their fixed expenses and their variable expenses. And each category is totaled independently of the other. So if you look at the fixed expenses, we have our mortgage, loan, education loan. Anything that's a loan falls under fixed expenses because the amount that you're required to pay back is the same each month. Now you can choose to pay extra, but the required amount never changes. Insurance premiums are another thing that are always in fixed in expenses, such as health, life, car. This is insurance that you pay for, and you typically pay the same amount each month. Cable TV, typically that can also be listed under fixed expenses. Under variable, as you see, all of the amounts for the variable, these can change. You never spend the same amount on groceries, gas. Your phone line, you may or may not. Cell phone is listed in here, but sometimes nowadays, with it being unlimited plans, you typically pay the same amount. So some people may decide to put it in the fixed expenses section. Sanitation, entertainment, all of those things are things that can be changed. Now, on the right side of this cash flow chart is non-monthly expenses per year. So these are expenses that you pay, but not necessarily every month. For example, medical and dental, you don't have typically medical or dental appointments every month. You only pay a certain amount throughout the whole year. Auto-related would fall under there because it could contain things such as car repairs, gifts, tuition. You don't pay tuition every month. Typically, you pay tuition at the beginning of each semester or term. And then you will notice there's a non-monthly total, and there's also a non-monthly expenses. There's a per year and a per month. So to find the per month, what you would have to do is take the per year amount and divide it by 12 so you can get the monthly amount. Total expenses would be fixed, variable, and this per month amount added together. And to figure out the monthly cash flow, you take your income minus your total expenses. And in this case, it's a positive $110. So that means they have more money coming in than they have going out. Okay, suppose that the cash flow had been negative $160. What advice might you give Dave and Joan? In that case, looking at that negative 160 would mean that you have more expenses than you have income coming in. So if we look at their chart, I would look under the variable expenses, things that you can change, and say, what could I cut down on? So maybe they want to cut down on entertainment. Okay. And that might even affect the gas amount that you spend. By cutting down on entertainment, you're not going in and out. Dining out is another area that you might decide to cut back on, so that way your monthly cash flow is back in the positive. So the Consumer Credit Counseling Service suggests that transportation expenses be between 6 to 20% of your budget and savings between 5 to 9%. So we're going to use Dave & Jones cash flow analysis to determine whether they remain in the guidelines for these categories. So the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what the total transportation costs are. So if we look at this, the areas I've highlighted in yellow deal with transportation: car loans, car insurance, fuel, auto related. Those 4 areas all relate to transportation. So you would want to add them all. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that with auto related, that represents an entire year. So for that amount, you would actually need to divide it by 12. So here it is written out: car loan, car insurance, gas, and auto related. Notice that I took the 700 and divided by 12 to get 59 as a monthly amount, and then added it all together. So they said transportation should be between 6 and 20% of the budget. So at this point, we would then need to take our income amount, and we would need to take our transportation amount and divide it by our income amount. So that 469 divided by 6,100 is 0.077, which is about 7.7%. And that falls within our transportation expenses. For our savings to income, we would go back here to our cash flow chart and see that our savings is 300, divided by our income of 6,100, and we end up with 4.9%. Now, they said our budget savings should be between 5 and 9%. So looking at this, transportation was a little above the suggested amount and savings was a little below. Okay, so Dave and Joan want to include a section in their cash flow spreadsheet that will calculate the monthly percentage allocated to certain categories. So we want to write a formula that will calculate the transportation percentage for the month. So our transportation expenses are in B8, B13. So the way you would look at this, and where I got those letters, is transportation is in yellow. So our car loan payment would be in column B, row 8, and that's how I got B8. Car insurance, column B, row 13, that's how I got B13. So that's how we get these categories. The one thing you need to remember is for E8, that was our non-monthly expenses that were calculated per year. We need to turn that into a monthly amount. So we need to remember to divide that number by 12 in the function. So when creating a function, I would write it out first verbally: monthly transportation expenses divided by monthly income. And then because we'll get a decimal, we need to multiply it times 100 to turn it into a percentage. So to write this out, one thing you will notice is that we always start with an equal sign. This indicates a calculation on the worksheet. Okay, and our order of operations, where we use parentheses to make things happen in the order we want to, also work in the formula in a spreadsheet. So you'll notice this right here, this was our non-monthly, and we want it to divide by 12 to turn it into a monthly expense. We add all of them with the plus sign in between, put parentheses to force it to add them all first, and then divide it by B5, which is the income, and multiply it times 100, and that will give us our formula to place in the cell in the worksheet.